Hello there, this is David Walsh for TLMI. What you're about to hear is a short interview with Steve Schulte, Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Mark Andy, who is also a judge with the TLMI Label Awards. Participation in TLMI's annual awards competition offers many benefits in terms of obvious prestige, but can also be a tangible plus when it comes to internal morale and team building. Entry is actually very straightforward, and Steve answers a few questions that address this, and he also gives some insider insight into things to look out for when you participate. If they don't already, all TLMI Converter members should seriously consider submitting their work this year. The deadline is June 15th, and as you'll hear, the submission process is easy. TLMI had a meeting in Tampa recently, and I spoke to 3 different companies, some bigger, some smaller, all of whom had taken part in the awards competition for the first time last year. It was very instructive that when asked, each said that now they'd taken part for the first time, they would definitely be doing so every year from now on. For more information, just take a look at the links below this interview, and remember, print with pride. Here's part of my conversation with Steve.
If you were going to give advice to a converter considering submitting for the first time, what would it be?
Simple, David. It is just follow the rules. Read the requirements very carefully. Read them again. It's amazing how many entries are disqualified just simply because the rules haven't been followed. The last section of the entry, there's a section that says, briefly describe any special challenges overcome in manufacturing the entry. This is a critical section that often proves the difference between success and failure. Also, where judges look for additional information, this is one of the most neglected areas of the entry, despite being a golden opportunity for a company to present additional compelling evidence and convince the judges why their product is worthy of winning. When it comes down to it, if there's several entries that maybe tie for first place, if a description is defined, describing the challenges and difficulty, that may be the difference of a winner and loser.
As a judge, you see errors that could be commonly avoided from a print aspect.
Yes, David. Out of registry, you would think that most entries, this would be a no-brainer. However, one of the most technical problems I see is poor register. I would say there's a large number, probably 30 to 40% of labels that we judge are somewhat out of register. Now, very little sometimes, but if you want a winning label, you need to make sure you have perfect register.
One of the things, and if this is another question which I was going to ask, which is about if I'm a label converter whose business isn't HD Flexo or Prime labels, is there any point in entering? But I'm going to add a little caveat to that too, and forgive me my ignorance here, but we hear the phrase prime and non-prime used an awful lot, and I've always thought, well, I'm not quite certain what that is, but I've kept quiet. But then again, at a recent meeting, a couple of converters said to me, I wasn't quite certain what that was either. So maybe you can clarify that for us.
Yes, and absolutely. You do not need to be an HD Flexo of Prime labels only. The definition of a Prime label is the main label on the product with the graphics and the brand of the image. A non-Prime label is typically the label on the back with the ingredients or manufacturing information on the back, or it could be the neck around the bottle of a wine bottle.
Sure. Okay, good. From your position on the judges' side of the table, how difficult is it to submit to the awards competition?
Although the entry form may look a little complex, it really isn't. The first section of the entry form determines the appropriate entry category. Several categories. They are coupon and expanded informational label, paperboard or rigid packaging, in-store promotion, specially decorated product. There is a tag industrial, tag merchandising, non-pressure sensitive, pressure sensitive excluding wine and spirits, and then there's a category for all wine and spirits. Now within each one of these categories, there are several subcategories based on what the printing method is it cut and stack or roll to roll, what processes are used, and is it a prime or non-prime label. Once determining the appropriate category, you just have to complete the entry form. The first section of the entry form is what category are you entering, and again, there are several different categories, a little over 60 categories.
Okay.
You need to name the entry, describe the end use of the entry, such as what industry, product type, placement. Example would be health and beauty, food and beverage, is this an in-store promotion, etc. Then there's a section, what process used? Is this inline or offline? And some of the process examples would be roll-to-roll, flat screen printing, digital printing, hot stamping, varnishing, lamination.
Right, and all of these are different awards.
Yes, they are. There are up to, like I said, 60 different categories that you could have award winner entry. Again, depending on the different processes used, you just select the processes used and then enter in the category in which
good. Yeah, no, I mean, I think sometimes we think that there's only 4 or 5 awards, and it might be quite difficult. But obviously, there's lots of different things. You can find your own spot.
Absolutely, and that's a key point I want to make. There's over 60 different categories that you can enter into. Several of these categories sometimes have 0 entries.
This is the key one, I think, if I were a converter, and although I like the idea of winning awards. But in your opinion, what benefits do you feel that a participant will get from submitting, even if they don't win? Is it an all-or-nothing proposition? I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, this year, the judges will be leaving feedback on the entry and why the entry fell short. So I think this would be a valuable input to compare yourself against the competition and see where you rank. And also there's a morale building, your team working together for a common goal, coming together to submit a quality product, even though not win, receiving the feedback and then possibly improve on that and enter again next year.
That's something I've also heard a number of converters say, and it sounds good, in theory, but they actually say, no, it really does make a hell of a difference to the team. It gives us some focus and really has proven to be extremely good for morale.
Absolutely, and I think I've seen some YouTube videos on the TLMI website where some converters specifically talk about that.
Steve is absolutely right, and as mentioned, if you look below this podcast, you will see the link he's referring to. I'd like to thank him for taking the time to give us a little more understanding of the process, and would encourage any converter members with questions to get in touch, and to also keep an eye out for the Print with Pride hashtag on social media. Thanks for listening.